Welcome, everybody, and welcome to RadioActive's 2021 Summer Listening Party. My name is Zaina. I'm a senior at Bethel High School in Spanaway, and I'm one of this summer's youth producers.
And my name is Eva. I'm a senior at KUOW High School in Mukilteo, and I'm also one of this summer's youth producers, and I'm so excited to be here.
Our workshop met for 4 weeks on Zoom this summer. 15 amazing youth producers each made a story highlighting one person in our community.
We learned a ton. We learned about audio editing, how to tell a good story, writing for radio, but most importantly, we built friendships like me and Zayn.
Yes, I loved connecting with the participants of RadioActive. Because of the environment that was created, we were able to be open and vulnerable. And that's how we were able to produce such amazing stories.
Being at RadioActive, I was challenged to be the best version of myself as a peer, as a student, and as a friend. And I met some of the most amazing people and gained a new love for journalism.
So now let's turn it over to RadioActive's program manager, Leela Lakehart.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Zaina and Eva, and welcome, everyone. So glad to be here. Although we're not all physically in the same place, I want to start by acknowledging the unceded native land that we're currently occupying. I personally am in Massachusetts at the moment, so I am on the ancestral lands of the Wampanoag, Wampanoag peoples. And the KUOW radio station in Seattle sits on the unceded ancestral lands of the Duwamish and Coast Salish peoples that are still here, continuing to honor and bring to light their ancient heritage. I am so excited to introduce this year's RadioActive Listening Party. KUOW's RadioActive Youth Media has been around since 2003. We started when some high school students came to KUOW one summer and said they wanted to hang out and learn how radio gets made. Since then, we've grown to become a year-round permanent program of KUOW Public Radio. And RadioActive is a place where young people discover what public radio journalism is all about and learn the skills to make their own stories and podcasts for KUOW. Young people's voices and perspectives aren't heard enough in media. We want to help to create a world where youth voice is expected and respected. So here's what we do. RadioActive Youth Media offers programs throughout the year. Intro workshops like this one, where teens get paid to learn audio production basics and produce their first stories. Advanced programs for graduates who want to keep building skills and making radio with us. And free community workshops partnering with schools and youth serving organizations. In these programs, we serve hundreds of young people a year, and the youth in our programs create content that you can hear on KUOW.org and 94.9 FM. So listen to more youth-produced stories and podcasts like the ones you'll hear today on our website, KUOW.org/radioactive. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and probably anywhere else you get your podcasts too. We would love it if you'd rate and review our show. It really helps. And find us on social media for more great content as well. We're at KUOW RadioActive on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. RadioActive is a program of KUOW 94.9 Public Radio. And KUOW's mission is to serve and inform the public. RadioActive would not exist without KUOW behind us. So thank you so much to KUOW for continuing to prioritize youth voice in the media and make this work possible. A big shout out to all the KUOW staff members joining us today. We're glad you're here. The biggest source of support for KUOW and RadioActive is listeners and community members like you. Special thanks also to these additional financial supporters of RadioActive this past year. And one small reminder before we get to the main program. We want RadioActive to remain a safe space for young people, and that includes this online event. We thank you for participating in this program by chatting in the comments of this video on YouTube. And we ask you to remember that this is a youth-friendly space, so harmful or offensive comments will not be tolerated. Thank you so much for helping us maintain a safe space for our community. We have such a fantastic show for you today. The 15 young people who are graduating from RadioActive's intro workshop, they worked so hard this summer. They showed determination, resiliency, and really a passion for radio storytelling. They put in many, many hours of skill building, production, editing, and troubleshooting to bring these stories into the world. And every one of them pushed themselves, overcame challenges, and brought so much joy to this work too. It's been a gift to work with each of these young people this summer and to be in community together. And the stories they produced are really, really special. You're in for a treat today. Thank you again for joining us. I'll close by handing it off to some of this summer's participants to share a bit more about what their experience at RadioActive has been like.
Being at RadioActive definitely has helped me with more public speaking and with also just like not being afraid of like showing people who I really am.
We learned so much in just like a short amount of time, and I was surprised that we did that much work.
I've become a lot better of a listener. I don't know, it's helped me like open my eyes a little bit to all kinds of new perspectives and all kinds of new people.
Meeting all the new people was so cool because like everyone was just so nice and so kind and amazing and so talented.
I was able to have an idea in my mind, and everybody at RadioActive helped me create a story with it.
I'm like, okay, let's do this. Like, I can't wait to do this. I can't wait to do the interview. Can't wait to do this. You know, it's just like exciting.
To be able to like go kind of outside of my comfort zone and to create something like super special is something that I'm really proud of.
I don't know, I just like put a lot of myself into the story, and I'm so proud that it came out the way that it did.
Something I am proud of is my resilience through this whole thing. It has been really fun, but also like there were times when I was like, oh my gosh, this is the hardest thing ever.
I was really stressed at some times, but then I bought food and then that made me feel better.
Same.
I've never done anything this big before, and being a part of it is like, wow, like I can really like do important stuff. And I think, being a part of RadioActive has really been a stepping stone in my life, and I think it's been just like a sign to myself really that I can do what I want if I really believe myself and if I work hard at it.
Never think your story isn't worth telling. Never think that someone's gonna be bored when they're listening to your story. If you're really passionate about it and you really like it, I think there's a really good chance that someone else is gonna like it.
It's just good to be around people who will push you farther and like support you in that way.
The support from my mentors, my peers, from everybody in this workshop, it was really empowering.
I don't think I was expecting to be so emotionally like connected to all these people. Like yesterday was technically our last day of seeing everybody, and I was like, I'm gonna miss you.
This was a really fun experience. I really liked being here, and I'll miss everyone, my mentors, my trio group, my mentor group, and everyone.
All right. Oh my gosh, Jennifer, I loved it when you said like when you were stressed you bought food, because I feel you. All right. Now it's time to listen to the stories you created. In the first half, we'll hear stories about immigration, family, art, the military, and resilience.
We'll listen to 7 stories back to back and then return for live Q&A with the producers. As you're listening, you can ask questions in the live chat, and we'll ask them during the Q&A. So without further ado, let's hear some radio magic.
RadioActive's Lily Turner sits down with Mia Crump, a teen determined to claim her space in the music industry despite not seeing herself represented there.
I met Mia in 6th grade, And throughout the past 6 years, we've stayed close friends. Both of us navigating the horror of middle school and the challenges that two disabled teens face in high school. In my earliest memory of Mia, we are 12 and singing. Mia has always been tangled in music, and I, ever since I was little, love nothing more than good lyrics. I've noticed that with my other disabled friends, music is always something that ties us together. For Mia, this is especially true.
Sometimes it can be quite hard to say how I feel. If I put it in a song, it can release the happiness or the angerness that's really been holding in, and just let it out, and singing makes it easier for me.
For me, music has been a hobby, a way to fill silence on the bus ride to school. But for Mia, it has been her life.
So I've been a musician for 7 years. I started playing the piano. Before I did that, I played a little bit of drums, a little bit of guitar.
Mia frequently performs for Best Buddies, an organization she is an ambassador for, as well as with a band she created called The Growing Up. I am hard of hearing and Mia has Down syndrome. Mia and I aren't who you'd typically see listening to or creating music. For a while this bothered Mia. She grew self-conscious before performances.
Because other people might laugh at you.
She developed a tainted perspective on herself, going around telling herself,
like, I suck.
Convincing herself she wasn't good enough. Mia even reached a point where she said she wanted to stop making music. The Mia I know now has come a long way since those days of self-doubt. I was curious, how did she pull herself out of this spiral of negativity?
Ooh, I think my biggest inspiration is probably Chris Nickick, because Chris Nickick is very famous in my eyes because he has also has Down syndrome.
Chris is an athlete. He's the first person with Down syndrome to complete an Ironman triathlon. Mia went to Hawaii and saw him compete and says she's very proud of him. It helped for some reason, she told me, seeing someone who may have experienced what she experiences. Seeing them do it, you know you can. I was moved to hear this, and thought back to my own struggle to find role models with my disability. While I can't fully understand Mia's experience, when it comes to positive portrayal of people with any disabilities, the cases are very minimal. Both Mia and I want to change this. Mia spends hours making YouTube videos and Instagram posts titled, How Special Down Syndrome People Can Be, while working on her music career. While I sit at my desk staring at the various KUOW stickers and tabs I have open, I think about how much it would have meant to me 3 years ago to hear someone like me on the radio. Perhaps it would have saved me a lot of self-doubt and hatred. Maybe inspired me like Chris has inspired Mia. I look forward to seeing where our futures take us. I know for Mia, whatever path she chooses, music will always be woven within her. As she puts it,
yeah, music has totally changed me and my life.
Bye, Mia.
Bye. Love you.
Love you too. See you later. For KUOW from RadioActive, this is Lily Turner.
Nikke's hair and self-esteem were damaged. She began the long process of restoring it to its natural texture. But what happened when the opinion of others left her conflicted? RadioActive's Alayna Lee sat down with Nikke to discuss the process and her journey with self-confidence.
I'm gonna do my hair now. Okay.
That's my best friend Nikke. You're listening to her on a wash day. Typically, her wash day routine takes her 5 to 6 hours, but for her, it's worth the time.
Hair to me is definitely a form of self-expression and empowerment. Currently, my hair is all natural, so there's no more like damaged parts or pieces, and I'd say that it's like the healthiest it's ever been since like 7th grade.
7th grade was when Nikke and I first became friends. I remember her hair was always in twists, but she wanted to try straightening her hair because she was inspired by other black classmates. The first time Nikkei got her hair straightened was in 8th grade. She liked it. Her hair looked very smooth and shiny. She started straightening her hair every few months, but in 9th grade, every few months turned into every few days. That 400-degree flat iron left Nikkei with a lot of split ends and breakage.
If I had to put how my hair was into like one word, it would just be like lifeless. Yeah, it just felt pretty dead, which, I didn't want that anymore. I was tired of that.
Nikkei decided to transition her hair back to its natural texture. She stopped straightening it and started using treatments to repair the damage. They were supposed to help moisturize her hair, bring out her natural curl pattern, and return elasticity to it. But after 5 months, they didn't deliver the results Nikkei was hoping for.
My hair was like all over the place in terms of how it looked, because it basically had like 3 different patterns going on. So I was dealing with 3 different hair types, trying to get them to all be like one.
Nikkei was worried that the only solution would be to cut her hair, which she didn't want to do. She didn't know she could pull out short hair. It was out of her comfort zone. Her classmates started to notice the change in her hair. Some even commented on it. Nikkei remembers when someone said,
"Oh, you should straighten your hair again. It was so pretty when it was like straightened." I mean, I took that as a compliment, but I also at the time was like, "Oh, well, so you're saying that you just don't like my hair right now?"
Nikkei didn't know how to feel. The comments took a toll on her self-esteem. She stopped wearing her hair out and instead wore it in ponytails for the rest of 9th grade. She was afraid that if she wore it out, people would continue to judge it.
You could say that my mind was in a similar state to my hair. You could say that it was like conflicted between going natural and wanting to be straightened again.
After some reflection, Nikkei knew what she needed to do. She needed to prioritize herself and her happiness. So she got a big chop. All the permanently straightened parts of her hair were cut off, making way for the natural hair growing in.
It felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders.
I remember when Nikkei sent a photo of her new hair to her group chat. She had mixed feelings about it, but she grew to like the haircut more and more as she experimented with different styles. Hair was like an art form to her. It was difficult to navigate, but had fulfilling results.
I'm in a place now where I'm a lot more confident in myself and my curls, and I can say that I'm proud of my hair, which is something that I definitely couldn't say back in freshman year. I also feel a lot more proud to be just a Black woman, especially to be a Black woman with big hair. It reminds me that I don't have to conform to any beauty standards to be considered beautiful or pretty.
Over these past 5 years of friendship, I've watched Nikkei's self-confidence grow. I saw in the subtle changes. She tried new hairstyles. Pictures of her grew more dynamic. Her smile got brighter. Sitting down and talking with her made me think about my own self-confidence. Sometimes I get frustrated at myself for not being as confident as others. But Nikkei's story reminds me that self-confidence is a journey. It'll be different for everyone. Take your time. Building confidence is no easy feat, but with others around us to learn from, I think it can be a little less scary. For RadioActive, this is Alayna Lee.
Yuke and Shoyin have run a barbershop out of the basement of their Beacon Hill home for 40 years. Their grandson, RadioActive's Colin Yin, has never gotten a haircut anywhere else. Before they came to Seattle, Yuke and Cho ran another barbershop in Hong Kong. Colin talked to Yuke, his grandma, about her immigration story, her love story, and what he has to learn from her. Here's Colin.
My yaya and Ying met at a barbershop in Hong Kong in 1966. My yaya was a barber, and my Ying needed a haircut. The rest is history. They got married and had a baby daughter. My Ying says at the time in Hong Kong, education was both expensive and not very good. She was worried about overpopulation in the city. So my yaya and Ying decided to move their young family to New York.
Being an American, easy for, good for the kid, because at that time I have a daughter. So that's why I try to make my daughter have a good surrounding to school. So that's why we moved to America.
If my Ying was going to go all in on moving to America, she had to let go of the friends and family she had known her whole life in Hong Kong.
I had a lot of friends, customer and my ma and my mother-in-law a lot of people. So when we come here, so we try to make some new friends.
When they moved, Ma Ying was surprised to find there were already a lot of Chinese people living in New York.
When I first came here, I already see somebody I know. Yeah, so that's why I'm so happy.
My grandmother was excited by the number of people that she could talk to in New York, but they simply weren't making enough money to live there. That's when their friend told them about an opportunity to have a barbershop in their own house in Seattle. They jumped at the chance. But Seattle was different. My grandmother didn't know any people there. Not many people spoke Cantonese, so she said it was hard to communicate.
Like the American people, right? They said we have accent, Chinese accent. They don't understand what I'm saying. So that's why it make me so embarrassing.
My grandma took English classes and watched English shows on TV. It started to get easier to communicate, and eventually she was able to make some new friends.
So right now, I have a lot of friends. They all already retired, so we can play mahjong all the time.
I asked Ma Ying if she was happy that she came to America. She says the job opportunities and education that it provided her children with made all the challenges worth it.
My son, he got a very good job. And then I have two daughters. They both got a good job too. So that's why I'm so happy we moved here.
As I listened to Ma Ying talk about her life, I reflected on the COVID-19 pandemic. It made me realize that if they had gotten sick, I could have lost them and these pieces of my family's history. I feel so lucky to be able to sit with them and learn about their past. And now, as I grow up, they pass the baton of our family's legacy to me. I carry their stories as I write my own. For RadioActive, I'm Colin Yin.
Imagine going to sleep after working a 12-hour shift, only to be kept awake the whole night by aircraft shaking your room. This was a reality for Petty Officer Serene Diakate, a Navy sailor on the USS Nimitz. He spent nearly a year out at sea on an extended deployment. That was because the Navy wanted to prevent outbreaks of COVID-19 on ships. RadioActive's Khassim Diakate has more on his brother.
From April 2020 to March 2021, my brother Serene took on one of the toughest naval deployments in history.
Just being on quarantine on the ship while we're in the beginning of the deployment, it can be kind of a very mentally, it's a mental thing, like a mental block that, you have to kind of overcome.
The USS Nimitz spent 321 days deployed at sea without any ports due to COVID-19 and rising military tensions in the Middle East. The hours and living conditions played a huge role in the mental difficulties for sailors and Marines during their deployment.
We're working 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts, so it's a nonstop, constant grind, hustle.
I couldn't imagine myself being in my brother's shoes during that time. I have trouble remembering to take out the garbage before the truck comes, let alone surviving long work hours.
And then there are times where, we have a water shortage or so we can't do laundry for like a week.
And it keeps getting worse. Hearing these experiences from my brother were really the driving force to realizing how mentally tough he is. So I asked him about it on a Zoom call.
I said you'd be trying to sleep in just a heavy aircraft just coming and landing just like right above you, and you just feel the ship moving and it's loud and you hear the catapults, and it's just a very hard environment to kind of get sleep in.
Navy deployments usually last about 6 months, but because of COVID-19, this was the longest naval deployment since the Vietnam War.
The worst part about it is that we didn't know when we were coming home, so we were out just not knowing when we were going to come back because of COVID. Like, just not knowing is what really made it challenging.
Was there any point where it's like wow, like I'm out here for a long time, I don't know what the future holds?
You just have to keep reminding yourself the reason why you're doing this for, and of course, yes, you don't know when you're going to come home, but you just got to pray you're going to come home eventually.
Part of what helped my brother make it through this tough time was being able to talk to my family. It took a lot of self-reflection to realize this deployment was bigger than himself.
Being able to talk to my family, every once in a while, I call on the payphone, call my mom, my dad, you guys. And like I said, just reminding myself that I'm doing this for a good reason.
What would you tell yourself, knowing what you know now?
Stay resilient, do not let things get to your head. Just stay strong, and it'll all be over.
Hearing about my brother's optimism and mental toughness during an uncertain point in his life made me discover a greater appreciation for him. For RadioActive, I'm Khassim Diakate.
Around 2 million recent high school graduates in the U.S. go on to attend college each year. Jaka Tunkara, a recent high school graduate, touches on the obstacles she faced during her college preparations and where her high school failed her. Her brother, RadioActive's Mohammed Tunkara, brings us more.
This sound is usually associated with the transition in school. Rajaka, the last time she heard this sound, signaled a transition from high school into a new direction in her life.
So my goals going into college, well, I hope to get a degree so I can secure a stable job in the career path I chose.
My sister Jaka, she's always been a big inspiration for me, and we both share a love for reading. My sister is going to be the first in our family to go to college. Being a first-generation daughter of immigrants, she's had to balance both her cultural identities and find creative ways to deal with her problems.
Juggling schoolwork and housework have been a big struggle for me. In the past, once I would get home from school, I had to do my chores. That would leave me with little time. Chores can take a very long time. They can take up to 1 or 2 hours, even up to 5 hours. Then I would only have 1 or 2 hours to do my homework, and then I have to go to sleep, and my day would repeat.
One of my memories of my sister's hard work was when I was a freshman in high school. This was the first time that I had a long project that I was working on, and I had to stay up till 1 a.m. to finish it. When I was going to bed, I noticed that my sister's light was still on, and I could hear pages flipping as I walked past the stairs into my room. All that hard work helped Jaka to graduate with a high GPA, but the goal of public schools, it's never been getting students to college. Only a quarter of high school students that took the ACT met the test benchmark for being ready for college. Jaka thinks her school failed to prepare her for college.
I feel like school should have prepared me and other students more when it came to college applications, how to look for scholarships, figure out which career paths I might want to go down, and provide opportunities like job shadowing or have professionals come in and talk to students about their own professions.
Being the first in our family to go to college and having all her responsibilities, college didn't feel accessible because our high school didn't provide her with enough scholarship resources.
So what I did is that I just took it into my own hand, went online, researched for scholarships that I could do. I just applied to all of them, and I got some of them.
My sister, she's one of the most hardworking individuals I know. I believe no matter what she does in her life, she'll be able to accomplish great things, and I'll always be rooting for her. What keeps you motivated when you're in a rocky place?
What keeps me motivated is my family.
Seeing my sister's motivation and perseverance, it's personally impacted me. I want to work a lot harder in my life. This fall, she'll be a freshman at the University of Washington, and I'm looking forward to watching her succeed. For RadioActive, I'm Mohammed Tunkara.
Hugo Guerra grew up in a tough home life in Guatemala. He used his guitar to help cope and overcome challenges as a teenager. When he immigrated to America, it was a tool to survive. His son, RadioActive's Adrian Guerra, reports.
That's my dad playing the guitar. He learned how to play when he was growing up in Guatemala City. At 13, when he saw his cousin get a guitar for Christmas, he knew he needed one too. It took his parents a year to save up the money.
I remember it sounding great, but I didn't have much of a frame of reference. I also was just starting out, so I wasn't very good.
Life has never come easy to my father. Growing up in the aftermath of a civil war brought challenges that many of us in America don't have to face.
I remember being dropped off from school by a friend's mother, and another car was following us. So when they got to my house, they got out of the car and they took us out of that car with guns, You know, like everybody got out and then they stole the cars. And I've had many moments like that.
Hearing him tell me this story took me aback. It's a massive contrast from the life he's helped provide for me and my brother. But things like that were just normal for him. Sometimes you don't realize just how good you have it until you hear something like that.
Sometimes it's hard for people to understand, you know, like how do you grow up like that? Or I feel that sometimes people think that you grow up in constant fear because of that. But I would say that it just becomes a part of your life or what you have to do.
At 18, when most kids are going off to college or getting jobs, my father left all he knew behind and moved to the States. But his challenges weren't fixed overnight. He would work 12 to 14-hour days in restaurant kitchens just to get by. If you've ever worked in a restaurant before, you know how tiring that can be. A 12-hour shift is enough to make a normal person want to pass out. But my dad is far from normal. He told me that if you're an immigrant in a new country, you just can't afford to be overwhelmed.
You might feel it, and yeah, a lot of Latinos that I knew felt it as well, but you don't even think about it. You don't talk about it because you have to continue. There's no other choice. It's kind of like a shark swimming in water. You know, like you keep going or you die because you can't breathe.
Music was a kind of meditation to him. It helped his constantly thinking brain take a deep breath. It connects him now to the young musician from Guatemala.
It just engaged a different part of myself, and that was relaxing as well. Because at least for a brief moment, you know, you don't think about the stress or the hours you're working or anything like that. You know, you're just playing an instrument. Something about music, you know, I really do feel, like you said, that it is a part of me in some way.
And it's a part of me too. From RadioActive, I'm Adrian Guerra.
Michelle Nguyen has high standards for her children, especially her eldest daughter, Jennifer. Now that Jennifer's older, she wants to understand where these standards come from. RadioActive's Jennifer Nguyen has more.
Either this or that.
Either this or that. Either this or that.
That's my mom, Michelle. She's extroverted, emotional, and hardworking. She's worked as a hairstylist for 13 years and helps my aunt with her salon. When she's not working, she's learning English to better communicate with her clients.
I learned English from the YouTube. Yeah, now the YouTube, they have the teaching English in there, and when I have time, I only learn English from there.
Even though my mom is self-sufficient, sometimes she needs help. That's where I come in. Besides doing a list of chores, I'm also a third parent to my younger siblings. I feel like I'm Cinderella, and my little siblings are my evil stepsisters who I cater to. With high school and a social life, it's hard to balance everything. When I ask my mom why she keeps me busy, she says,
So I want her to be like that and like me, stronger, and we work and no complaint. Work, 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 work.
Sometimes I can handle it, but sometimes it's too much. It's like she wants a perfect daughter, but that's not really me. I don't see my friends' moms ask the same things from them. I had to know. What was it like for her growing up as a teenager in Vietnam?
I grew up with my mom. My mom, she got a heart disease and she couldn't work. So I had to work and make money for my mom to survive. About that time, I am only 13 years old. I work very hard. I work in a factory sugar. I work until I very feel tired, feel exhaustion.
When I heard this, my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe my mom worked in a sugar factory at age 13. When I was 13, I sit in my room and watch Nickelodeon. My mom had to work to help her family survive.
I am done work and I feel bad, so where the money we have to survive, that's why I happy to work.
I realized I was more similar to my mom than I thought. I helped my mom with chores and parenting, and she worked when her mother couldn't. We both had childhoods defined by helping our mothers. Here's how my mom feels about my help.
I got her help me, so I feel I okay now. If she don't help me, I don't know what I do.
I never thought about it before, but my mom is the most hardworking person I know. She's my role model. I know why she pushes me now.
Yeah, I don't want someone say, oh, this girl don't know how to do anything. Maybe her mom don't teach her. I want my daughter know how to do anything. Now I still alive, so what I can teach her, what I can teach, I teach.
I always thought my mom was going to be with me forever until I die. This made me realize that wasn't the case. I'm grateful my mom is still alive so I can continue to learn from her. But more than anything, I'm grateful to be her daughter. For Radioactive, I'm Jennifer Nguyen.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I can go on and on about Jennifer's story, to be honest, and about like everyone's stories. I continuously am like so impressed every time I listen to them. I mean, what about you, Zaina? Because I can imagine like they're just amazing.
I love these stories. They all give me chills. Like, thank you so much for sharing about your friends and family. Like, me and Eva love these stories. Thank you for opening up and sharing.
All right, so now let's get a behind the scenes view into how these stories are made. And just a reminder, if you're watching it live, you can still send questions for the youth producers in the YouTube chat.
So now we'd like to invite all the producers we just heard from onto the screen. That's Lily, Alayna, Colin, Khassim, Mohammed, Adrian, and Jennifer. Can each person share either one thing that they're particularly proud of or one thing that was challenging in producing this piece? So let's start with Lily.
I think something that I struggled with when creating my story was making sure I was representing Mia and I's story in a way that was positive, but also not harmful to her community in any way. That was something that I wanted to be very careful of and balance out.
What about you, Alayna? What was hard, or what was just one thing that made you really proud about making your story?
I think one of the biggest obstacles I had was writing my script, because Nike's story, there's a lot of contributing factors to like how she ended up where she is now. And it was about kind of pulling the most important pieces of it to create a piece. And my script, it started off being 9 minutes long, and I was able to cut it down to around 4.5, which is pretty good in my opinion from where it was. And yeah, it was about kind of taking something that was so disorganized and messy, like my first draft of my script, and kind of cleaning it up. And I'm super happy that I was able to get like peer feedback and editor feedback to help me with that.
How was this story for you, Colin?
Yeah, for me, I'm really happy I was able to make this story, mostly because at first I wasn't even sure if I could use this story and if anyone would actually want to listen to it. And as time went on, I realized that there's so many interesting, pieces of my grandparents' history that I didn't even realize before. And being able to find all those pieces and put them all together and then, just share with the world was just a really amazing thing to happen. So I'm really grateful for that.
What about you, Khassim?
Something I'm really proud of is just being able to execute it. I feel like there was a lot of stuff that I wanted to tell about my brother, and just having that time crunch and having limited time was a little bit difficult, but just being able to execute it, be happy with what I told, and I feel like it was something meaningful that I put out. So,
how about you, Mohammed?
Something that I'm proud of is just like being able to create a story in general. I knew what I wanted my story to be like, but I just like didn't know exactly how I was going to put it on paper or write a script or like just like title my story. But eventually, like after like lots of feedback, peer feedback from mentors, our peers, and like the editors, I was like able to create like a fully edited radio story, which I'm proud of.
And Adrian?
Yeah, for me, it was being able to create like something that I'm actually like really proud of. Like there were a lot of challenges, like, for me, I had a lot of trouble like trying to pick out which bits of the interview to actually use because there were so many like bits that I had to cut out and like not use, and it sucked. But in the end, like, just cutting it all down and like letting it flow, and just everything turned out really well. And I'm proud of that.
And Jennifer, how was it for you?
Something I'm proud of is that I finished the workshop. I got everything done that I wanted to be done, because throughout the workshop, I was like, what if I just give up? But I was like, nah, all my hard work and all my mentors' hard work would go to waste. So I'm glad I got through it, and it helped me create this piece, which I'm proud of.
Okay, so now we will start the Q&A portion. I'll go ahead and I'll ask a first question. Anyone can answer, but I'll probably just pick on someone to make it more easier, so like it won't be like traffic. Okay, the question is, what was the process like for producers to come up with the ideas/topics for those stories? I'll pick on Lily.
So the process was a lot of brainstorming. We came in with a story that we had pitched, and then we met with our different mentor groups and our different smaller groups, and we kind of pitched the ideas, talked about it, discussed different aspects that would be hard, met with an editor. So it was really a lot of collaboration with different mentors and others in the group to kind of narrow it down to one specific idea or topic we wanted to focus on, and then we kind of just went from there.
Okay, thank you. For Alayna, what surprised you the most about the production of this story?
I think what surprised me the most is what you have to consider when you're writing your script, because I didn't realize like how, because script writing kind of differs from kind of like traditional writing you learned in school, because everything you have to cater towards the ear. And because you're catering towards the ear, everything has to be kind of short and to the point, which I'm not personally used to. So it's kind of getting used to writing in that kind of way. And also, you don't have to be formal. Like the best stories just have like you throughout all of it, like your voice, your tone, everything, like the language you use. So I think it's just, I guess what surprised me the most was about how much of my personality I could put into it, and kind of overall, like the writing style that we had to utilize to write the scripts.
This is a question for both Mohammed and Khassim. What did your siblings think of you choosing them to profile in your stories?
I can start. I mean, me and my brother talked while he was on deployment, and like hearing his experience on it, I felt like that was something I really wanted to tell. Just didn't have the outlet to do that, and with RadioActive, that allowed me to do that. And my brother was really, really happy that I reached out and told people about it. I feel like that's just something that generally isn't like heard of in his community, in his space. So.
For me, it was like she was like a little bit awkward about it, because this is like the first time she was like asked to do something like that. Like after a while, she was like really supportive of it. Like she was like giving me like lots of feedback of what I could improve, what she wanted added, and it was like just overall really like supportive environment.
Thank you. So Adrian, what was it like producing a story about someone you live with?
Yeah, I mean, especially like making a story about like my dad, who's somebody that I already know like a lot about. It's really interesting, just like learning so many things that you like didn't even know before, like hadn't even considered about like his home life, like growing up. Like, I don't know, just being able to learn so much about somebody that you thought you already knew everything about. That was really interesting.
This is a question for Jennifer. Has producing this story changed the way you talk with your mom?
Yeah, for sure. Before, I didn't really get to talk like that deep with my mom because our schedules just wouldn't collide. There was this clash. But after this interview, we got closer, and I think, we got closer and we're able to speak more with each other. So, yeah.
Okay, this is for anybody to answer. How did you conduct your interview to allow them the space to define their identity, and what type of questions did you ask? Colin, what do you think?
Yeah, the interview process was really interesting because you kind of you have the story idea in the back of your head, but it's also trying to get information from them and tell their own stories. So you're kind of a way to transfer what they say in your interview over to the story. And for the most part, just the kinds of questions I ask, I try my best to ask open-ended questions to help facilitate the conversation and to have my grandmother, feel calm and be willing to share these aspects of her life. So the interview process is really interesting.
Alrighty. Zeki asks, does this experience make you want to have a career in radio? And if so, why? And I believe anyone can add or answer this question.
All right, I can take this one. For me personally, it really opened my eyes to a lot of different things that I enjoy that I didn't even realize, this type of writing, the entire process of interviewing, editing, all these things. There's a lot of stuff that I really enjoy doing and that I wouldn't have discovered otherwise without doing this program. I'm really interested in continuing journalism as a whole and possibly pursuing it in the future.
Yeah, I think this experience also really opened me up to the possibilities with journalism. It's not just about reporting on news, it can be about telling people's stories, and it gave us the opportunity to look into different people and think about how we want to tell stories, the style we want to use, the type of media we want to use. So it was a really great opportunity to introduce us to a lot of different parts of journalism, kind of an introduction to that.
For Lily and Alayna, how was it for you guys interviewing two people who are a part of your communities, and how did that go about for you?
I guess I can go first. So as a non-Black person, I, acknowledge that me telling a Black story, me telling a story about my Black friend is definitely something challenging, and I could, I guess, overcross boundaries sometimes. So, thinking about that beforehand, I want to make sure that me and Nike both felt comfortable in the interviews, and and that I was portraying the story in the truest form. So in terms of what questions I asked, a lot of them were kind of building up background information because as I said before, I'm not Black. So, when talking about Black hair, I needed some background information, kind of how she would describe her hair, in her own words. I needed to look into certain terminology and make sure I was using it appropriately and correctly. And yeah, and a lot of and I guess a lot of the other questions focus on her emotions, because I wanted to ask those types of questions to kind of really understand why this topic is important to her and her identity.
Yeah, I think for me, interviewing Mia, while we both have disabilities, Mia has Down syndrome and I don't. So I had to come to the story with the angle of I could never fully understand Mia's experience, but I want to ask her questions and I want to make her feel comfortable enough to share as much as she wants to share, and make sure that the story isn't representing a community that you aren't a part of in a harmful way, and make sure that it doesn't play into any negative stereotypes or any history about the topic you may not understand. So just making sure that the story is going the way that the person you're interviewing wants it to go, and that it's truly representing them in a way that they want to be represented and they feel comfortable and aligned with.
All right. This next question, I'll go ahead and ask Mohammed. Did you have a specific audience in mind when creating your story? And if so, how did that end up changing your story?
When I first started, I knew what the story I wanted to create, but I didn't exactly know how I was going to portray the story. So when I first started, I just like made the story about like attacking like the school system and how it like failed high school students and like going to college. But as I like talked more with my editors, my mentors, and my peers, I really like shifted the story to like more about my sister and my experience with her, and to like give like the audience like a more like in-depth view about who she is and what she stands for.
Okay, well, with that question, that concludes our first Q&A portion. So thanks for talking with us, but now we'll turn it over to Adrian and Colin to take us through the rest of the stories.
All right, guys, my name is Adrian Guerra.
And my name is Colin Yeen.
And thank you guys so much for staying with us. We're all really excited to share our stories with you all.
These have been a whirlwind 4 weeks, and we've learned so much. What was your favorite part of the program, Adrian?
For me, it was definitely the last day where we shared our stories to each other and just got to listen to all our hard work being paid off. What about you, Colin?
Yeah, I also really enjoyed that last day, and it was just really cool to write out my script and then see all the pieces come together in order to make the final story you see today.
Yeah, same. It was really fun just seeing it all come together, and like everyone has a really good like story to tell. But for all you guys in the audience, don't leave just yet, because we've still got 8 more amazing stories to share with you.
In this segment, you'll hear all sorts of cool stories, from the environment to mental health to activism and the foster care system, and even a little bit of poetry.
And just like before, we'll have one last Q&A after all the stories are finished.
So without further ado, let's listen to these next 8 stories.
Every Friday after school, RadioActive's Layla Mbai helps out her mom's restaurant. Participating in the family business is something of a tradition in Layla's family. She comes from 3 generations of successful businesswomen. Layla talked to her mom about her grandma, the woman who started it all. Here's Layla.
I'm wiping down tables and sweeping the lobby at the family restaurant. My mama, Aisata Mbai, started this restaurant in 2019. But she's been running her own businesses since 2006. She learned from her grandma, my great-grandma, Hajia. Hajia ran an okra soup shop in Niger, and my mom started working there when she was 14. My mama says Hajia was a tough lady and an amazing cook.
She started her small business in front of the house, selling local food, but it was delicious. And little by little, everybody in the town knew about it. So everyone comes there for their dinner, you know.
When my mom was 22, she immigrated to the U.S. She settled in Seattle, and at first, she took any job she could find. But she got tired of working under others. So inspired by Hajia, she started her own business. My mom remembers being a kid and watching Hajia work constantly to run her business and raise her family.
She's always there and, never takes a day off. She works 7 days a week. Yeah.
Like you.
Yeah. That's, commitment.
Commitment. Now my mom works 7 days a week, and she's also a fierce advocate for us, her family. Hajia taught her that too. When my mom was a little younger than I am now, she would get in fights at school. She remembers Hajia would always be on her side.
And she would always come to the school and defend me.
Hajia not only just put her time into family and her business, she gave to the community too, by giving money to other working women in the markets. And neighbors were always welcome to come by her house to eat dinner, usually okra soup, and chat.
In our culture, you never eat alone. You always have to invite people around you, you know. Sometimes you even have to force them if they're shy to come and join you, you know.
My mother does the same by inviting my cousins to our house whenever she cooks a big pot of chobujen. Hajia made sure her kids understood the importance of giving.
I think it's the way we were raised. Yeah, raised to give, you know, no matter what. Even if you don't have a lot, even if you have one plate to share, you share it with somebody else.
I asked my mom what drove Hajia and all the women of our family to care so deeply about being providers and giving back. My mom told me it started when Hajia's father passed away, when Hajia was a teen. She had to grow up fast and help raise her little siblings.
She decided that she has to take care of herself when she realized that, you know, she doesn't have anybody else to take care of her, her and her family.
That independence, that drive, that generosity. These are the values that have been passed down through 3 generations of mothers and businesswomen in my family, right down to me. At 17, I'm closer to facing a new chapter of my life, adulthood. I'm nervous to say the least, but through learning about Hajia's life, I see the strength I need to face any obstacles ahead of me. The need to give and being around loved ones are the values that represent my family. When I'm down, my family reminds me, we're ready to catch you when you fall and congratulate you when you rise. For RadioActive, this is Layla and Bai. During the pandemic, the mental health of students of color was all but forgotten. Fernell Miller, an elementary PE teacher, noticed this and decided to make a change. She created a program called The Root of Our Youth for Black and Brown students during the pandemic to connect. RadioActive's Zayna Stewart has more.
For 30 years, Fernell Miller has been running an after-school organization for Black and Brown youth. For young students living in predominantly white spaces, Ms. Miller's program offers them the chance to spend time with their peers who look like them and understand their experiences. It's a place for students to get homework help, learn about ethnic history, and hang out with each other. This program ranges from kindergarten up through high school.
I can't tell you how much, my babies in kindergarten, love to see the high school kids and just to see the potential and see themselves reflected in the world changes everything and means everything. And so I like my high school babies.
With the start of the pandemic, many programs were put on hiatus, but not this one. Fernell Miller began to hold group meetings on Zoom and open it up to all youth, not just those at her school. This is when I got to join, and after one visit, I was hooked, and I just kept coming back. Before I knew it, I was going to the meetings 4 days a week, sometimes more.
I just kept opening my Zoom line every day, and kids would show up because they had a safe place to just be.
Miss Miller is from South Dakota. Her parents were educators on a native reservation. In the 60s, this was one of the few places Black educators could get a job. Once Miss Miller became a teacher, she wanted to create a space for Black youth that she could never have when she was younger. After all this time, she's created just that. As her program has grown, Miss Miller's seen a lot of progression towards the future that she wants to see. But this past year, seeing her students advocate and push for change was something special.
And so to see, 30 years of my work of doing that and then seeing these students here in real time change that future is like that was real easy to picture and hold in my mind and be a concrete moment for me of, wow, the future just shifted right there. And it was beautiful.
During the summer of 2020, I struggled. The cutoff for most of my social interaction was brutal, and on top of that, every social media platform was filled with clips of people who looked like me and were as old as me being murdered. The videos of them taking their last breath and calling to their mothers was put on repeat in the name of social awareness and being woke. That's why I'm so grateful the Root of Our Youth found me. Our conversations aren't always focused on trauma and pain. We have dance parties and impromptu poetry slams. We share music and talk about our favorite shows. And most importantly, we celebrate and learn about each other's cultures. This community has given me and many other students a home, and all of this is because of Fernell Miller.
There's a place where kids need to feel supported, seen, valued, visible, all of the things that they're searching for. They have everything they need inside themselves. And this is a place where we can really learn to look inside and find ourselves first, and then that's where we'll find each other.
For RadioActive, this is Zaina Stewart. Hal Beecher loves nature. His grandson Rhea sat down with him to talk about a time when that love was pushed to its limits in a court case that affected the nation. RadioActive's Rhea Beecher has more.
The first time my grandfather showed me the ocean, I was underwhelmed. I was probably like 12, totally unimpressed. But the second time, it was like 3 years later, and it just hit different. I was in the water for a super long time. The cold didn't bother me. I was like, nah, it's too pretty. And even after that, we were about to leave, and I didn't even look like I was about to leave. I left my phone in my shoes, and I'm in track, so I run everywhere all the time. And I remember seeing the sun reflecting off the sand as I ran along the edge of the water, and it was the best feeling ever. I blame my new appreciation for nature on my grandpa. He showed me how beautiful the natural world truly is. Every time we go to the ocean, we're using his binoculars to search for orcas. We've only found them a few times, but it was like, whoa. My grandfather's love of nature was sparked when he was really young. His mother was interested in plants and trees, and his father was interested in fishing.
When I was born, my father bought me a pair of binoculars. So I've had binoculars since I was a baby, too young to use them.
He studied fish ecology in school, and eventually he got a job with the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. And this only made his love for nature grow. And in 1982, something happened with him and with his work that started a court case that changed the nation. But it's also where the story gets complicated, so I'm going to try my best to summarize. That year, Public Utilities in Jefferson County and Tacoma City Light applied for a permit to build an electricity generating dam. My grandpa and people at the State Department of Ecology were worried about how this dam would affect the fish. They had their own statewide permit to issue, and it had more restrictions to protect the fish. So they took the issue to court. But the result of the case was appealed. This happened over and over until finally it went to the Supreme Court. And then the Washington State Attorney General took the case. Her name was Christine Gregoire, and later she became governor.
This case, she had been convinced that we were handing her a loser and that we were going to send her back to Washington, D.C., and she was going to be embarrassed about her state's rules. But she said, well, I want to see one of these things. She'd never seen a small hydro project and what it would look like. And so we said, well, all right, we'll take you to one. So we all hopped in a car one day and drove up I-90 towards Snoqualmie Pass.
My grandpa and his team showed her a different hydroelectric dam, one like the one that was proposed over the Dosewallips River.
She was very excited when she saw that. She said, yes, I can argue this case. We can make this case. And so we got back in the car and drove back to Olympia.
And a little while later, my grandpa found out,
yes, they won. And so that was very, very satisfying.
yes, they won. My grandpa explained that the ruling had meant
it went from something that was not protective to something where the fish people had an ability to make the recommendations for what they determined to be the most suitable for fish. So that was a big one for us.
His work at the Department of Fish and Wildlife ended up having a national impact, but it also had an impact on me. Every time I see the ocean, I look for orcas because of my grandpa. He has shown me how important it is to take care of our environment and how pretty our world is. Even after 36 years at the Department of Fish and Wildlife, my grandfather still continues to work with wildlife. Whether that's bird watching or conducting studies about the fish and streams, I know he'll never stop caring about the environment. As I get older and see the Amazon burning, ice caps melting, it makes me even more committed to conserving the natural world too. Coming at you hot from RadioActive, this was Rhea Beecher.
Folklorico is a style of dance that originates from Mexico. It's a form of storytelling that helps young Mexican Americans connect to their culture through stories and music. But for 15-year-old Kylie Hooks, it's much more than that. RadioActive's Josie Gonzalez has more.
What you're hearing is Olas, a traditional dance song from the state of Jalisco, Mexico. You're also hearing Kylie Hooks. Kylie's a 15-year-old dancer, and she's also my best friend. We met at Joyas Mestizas, which is a Mexican youth folklorico group. Kylie has been dancing for almost 13 years and started because of her mom.
My mom grew up in Utah, and her Mexican mom made her join a group. And when she moved to Seattle, she met a woman at a party who dances, and she got invited to dance in Bailadores de Bronce, where she danced for about 15 years, and then she had me.
After Kylie was born, her mom continued to dance, even with a 6-month-old baby on her back during practices. Kylie has been dancing since before she could walk, and she loves it. She loves the big, beautiful, colorful dresses lined with ribbons and matching hairpieces, but it's not all flowers and glimmer. Kylie has the blisters and bruises to prove how hard it is.
Dance is my culture. Even if it's hard and tiring, and sometimes you want to do other things with your Wednesday afternoons.
I've been dancing in the group for 10 years, but I'll never be quite as obsessed with it as she is. Despite multiple late-night practices and performances over the years, she never once thought about quitting. When I was younger, I wanted to quit at least once a year, but she stayed committed. Why did she stick with it?
Well, I dance because I love this community. They watch me grow up, and this group will forever be a part of my life.
When it comes to Kylie's future in dance, there's never been any doubt about what happens next. Dance is just something we do.
I just see myself finishing my career here at Joyas and moving to dance full-time with my mom in the adult group for as long as I can.
When you watch Baile Folklorico on stage, you see a story told through dance in just 2 minutes. What you don't see is the years someone like Kylie has spent perfecting each and every step and creating lifelong relationships.
Folklorico is not just about the costumes and the footwork, it's also about the family that comes with it.
Folklorico is a way for Mexican Americans like me and Kylie to pass down our stories and culture through the generations. No matter what happens in the future, the connection dance gives us to our culture will stay with us forever. For RadioActive, this is Josie Gonzalez.
There are currently more than 400,000 children in foster care in the United States. Kamaja Slaughter was one of those children. Today we'll hear about her experience in foster care and the struggles she went through to get to where she is today. RadioActive's Kamaja Slaughter has more.
Living in the foster care system is about survival and going through things a child should not have to experience. The struggles I went through meant I had to put a fake smile on when I was really broken on the inside and very traumatized. I had to go to court to advocate for seeing my siblings. I had to move all the time, change schools and cities without notice. I had to fight to not take medication while placed in a group home. Those are things that most teens do not have to experience. I always wanted to stay together with my younger brother and sister, but I was separated from them when I was 11. Sometimes I lived in a foster home with strangers and their kids, sometimes in group homes with a bunch of other kids my age. Then when I was 13, I was placed into a behavioral residential treatment facility in Idaho. I was further away from my goal of being with them. I talked with my social worker, Kelsey Gordon, about the ways I was dealing with all the chaos, and she asked me some questions about that time.
So why did you decide to have those types of behaviors?
Right then, I just couldn't trust anyone, and I was super closed off. I encountered multiple experiences of racism and being treated differently in numerous foster homes. It was the hardest thing I ever experienced, being away from my siblings, because they were my whole world to me. So I started to be impulsive rather than thinking with my head. During that time, I got a lot of emotional support from my social workers. It was helpful to have someone who understood what I was going through.
Do you think it made a big difference, Kamaja, having myself as your social worker who is a Black woman?
I think it did, because I got the emotional and mental support of both of you, because even working with Sine, who's my other old social worker, she would help a lot with getting me hair products or skin products that living in a white group home or a foster home they wouldn't have or wouldn't know what to get. But even with their support, there were so many moments I thought I couldn't do this anymore. I was worried I wasn't worthy enough to go to a foster home that would love me, seeing that both my brother and sister got adopted and I didn't. It's especially hard to get adopted being a teenager in the system with behavior issues. After I left the facility in Idaho, I moved around some more and finally ended up back with my mom. I've been here for almost 2 years and I'm doing pretty good. I still talk with my brother sometimes, but we don't have a strong connection anymore. I barely speak with my sister, and I really wish I did. Seeing how far I've come, I'm a different person from what I was before. I asked my social worker how she's seen me grow.
I think that you've matured a lot. I think with you being in the system for so long, you became kind of dependent on always having like a social worker or somebody to call when things went bad. Whereas now I feel like you're learning how to communicate with people better. You're such a sweetheart, so smart and so ambitious. I think it's really just you going from being a girl to becoming a young woman.
I am a senior in high school now, and I want to attend Howard University and become a midwife. I asked Kelsey what she wants from me.
I want to see you be able to like live independently outside of your mom's home and, you know, be able to take care of yourself and keep yourself motivated, because when you go into college, you're going to have to do all that work yourself. So I just want to see you grow into the young woman that I know you're trying to become, and hopefully you find the motivation to do that.
Hearing my social worker have such big hopes and dreams for me makes me encouraged to do better, not just for her, but for myself and for all the kids in the foster care system. Don't take my silence as a weakness. I'll become stronger and wiser from everything that I went through to make me the person I am today. For RadioActive, I'm Kimaja Slaughter.
Sadine El-Ziad is a junior at Nathan Hale High School in Seattle. She's Muslim, but it's a mostly non-Muslim school. Sadine is committed to making her school a more inclusive place for Muslim students. RadioActive's Najuma Abadur has this story about her friend.
Sadine is my best friend. She's funny and she's obsessed with turtles. In January 2020, Sadine and I got up in front of our whole school at an MLK assembly and gave original speeches about discrimination.
Every culture, language, and gender has all been subject to prejudice in many parts of the world.
Sadine was a sophomore and I was just a freshman when we gave those speeches, but we felt like it was time for us to step up as leaders. Since then, Sadine and I helped start a Muslim Student Association Club with other students at our school. When Sadine started high school, she didn't have a place where she could talk to other Muslim students and express her needs, so she had to create one herself.
I haven't really seen many Muslim leaders at my school, so I just really wanted to be that for other Muslim students and to encourage other Muslim students to, join with me and for us to lead to make our school better for us, because only us Muslim students will know what other Muslim students will need.
When you're a Muslim student at a non-Muslim school, it can be hard to do simple daily tasks like praying. Class schedules are not designed with Muslim students in mind, and most teachers are unaware or forget about prayer time.
You would be in the middle of the classroom and then you're like, oh wait, it's time for prayer now. And I would kind of have to like get the teacher's attention, but that's really hard to do, especially if the teacher is like, mid lesson. And it's kind of like embarrassing to ask because, again, you're disturbing the classroom.
And when we do go to pray, our high school doesn't have a designated prayer room. A lot of students pray in the library, but that lacks privacy. I use the meeting room, but it's not always available. Our school was simply not built for students like us. Sidine says there's a power dynamic between teachers and students, making it hard to ask for what you need. And when you do, you don't often feel heard.
Like sometimes as a student, I have to like yell at the top of my lungs to be heard and have to repeat myself over and over and over again, which is like very exhausting. And like honestly, having to go to these teachers is really a burden because I don't know, it's just like it's very hard to talk to authority.
And it's more than just talking to our teachers. Some of these issues are district-wide. For example, even though we get Christmas off, school is scheduled during Eid and Muslim students have to miss class. Sidine says that through the Muslim Student Association, we've made more teachers aware of the issues that affect us. And we've created a space to come together as Muslim youth, to talk and uplift each other. I think back to those speeches we gave. I ended my speech by saying, the minute we stop talking is the minute we lose our connections, and that's when we fall into the cycle of racism. I believe this stands in this situation too. We all need to communicate, talk, and listen to one another. It's the only way to make our schools an inclusive place for all of us. For RadioActive, this is Najuma Abader.
Hijabi Muslim women are powerful and have a choice to wear a scarf or not. RadioActive's Rama Abdulaziz wrote a poem using her sister Zahra's voice. It's about how they deal with Islamophobia as Muslims in the United States. Rama weaves her experience into her poem about the injustice hijabi and Muslim women face, and what Rama and her sister go through on a daily basis.
The pain that never eases when I hear the voices. They swirl around me and confine me. The stares that never cease, the fingers pointing my way. I try so hard to keep them at bay, but better believe it only gets worse when they blindly accuse me and curse. When they call me a terrorist, when I've lost the most. They blame the hijab that protected me from west to coast.
Like, it makes me feel safe. Without it, it feels like there's some big piece that's missing. Like, I'm missing something big, not just anything. And I just can't even imagine myself or my life without the hijab or the scarf.
Ever since that day I wore the hijab, I was given a choice. Whether I agreed or not, I had a voice. I want to let you know, every time you criticize me, my faith will only grow. You are no different from me. Don't let religion be a barrier to a degree. Yes, we have different beliefs, but in the end of the day, we all suffer from grief.
I wore the scarf without any pressure.
I am a survivor, a warrior in disguise. My armor is what kept me alive. My battle scars are from those who lied. Don't take silence for weakness. My faith and patience are my uniqueness. I am power waiting to be free. Don't keep criticizing, just let me be.
That's not what Islam is. Islam, it's peace. It teaches you how to respect others. It teaches you how to be kind. It teaches you how to help others no matter who they are, where they come from, or what their race is.
To the land between the two rivers, whenever I visit you I quiver. Mesopotamia, you were once great. Now all you are is bait. To the ones who came and destroyed my home, your bombs, occupation, and casualties led us to Rome. Nevertheless, I still survived. But don't think for a minute that I won't thrive. We may be practicing different religions, but in the end, we all live under the same sky, looking at the same moon. For RadioActive, I'm Rama Abdulaziz.
Ana Iglesias' daughter faced an eating disorder during her middle school years. Ana took the responsibility to learn and research about eating disorders and strengthen her own comfort with the stigma around mental health. RadioActive's Eva Solorio has more.
In my culture, having dinner with family is a time we're together. It helps us connect to one another. But food was different. For me, food was the enemy. I kept my eating disorder a secret until one day my secret was revealed. My mom remembers the day she found out.
I remember that I was working when I received the call from the school explaining to me how, Eva, you were acting during lunchtime. It took me by surprise, the situation, and I only asked how I could help.
We never talked about mental health in our family, so my mom assumed we didn't have any issues. That's why my mom was stunned when she heard the news of my eating disorder from the school nurse.
I felt lost because I had no knowledge of the type of problem you were going through. And above all, you, as my daughter, not trust or speak of the topic openly with me because even though I was always close, I got lost during all this time when you were having a hard time.
Like my mom, I felt lost. In my culture, food is how you communicate love. Growing up, my grandma would always greet me with a torta de frijoles or sopa. But I lost my ability to speak with my family. Food was always welcome at the table, but mental health was not. My mom never talked about mental health. It was mostly followed by shame in her family. But she knew she had to start, for me.
After I found out what was going on, for me, it was like an eye-opening experience to start to act in finding help and to give emotional support, even though in moments I didn't know how to act.
She wasn't sure how to help me, but she was determined to get answers. She fought to find me a therapist despite judgment from family. She broke the cycle of silence, not only in our family, but in other families as well. Now her friends go to her to ask for advice.
For me, in these moments, it's no longer difficult to talk about mental health, and I found friends that suddenly do talk about this topic, and I tell them we have to let ourselves just let go of the ignorance in asking for help.
Even though the journey was difficult, I call it a gift for my family. My mom broke through cultural norms of silence to get me the help that I needed. Ultimately, I call it a recovery for the both of us. For RadioActive, this is Eva Solorio.
Wow, these stories were just so amazing to listen to. And just 4 weeks ago, these stories didn't even exist. So it's super cool that we get to share these stories with all of you guys.
I agree, Adrian. After listening to those stories, feel free to put any questions that you may have for our producers in the chat.
And now I'd like to invite all the producers that we just heard from onto the screen. So that's Zaina, Layla, Eva, Najuma, and Rama.
Now, could each person share one thing that they were particularly proud of or something that was challenging producing this piece? Let's start with Layla.
Something I found difficult with producing this was just figuring out exactly what I wanted to talk about and write about. There were a lot of different paths I could go down, one being like the legacy from me, my grandma, and my mom, and my great-grandma. So just like a lot of different stories that could be told within this. But like after working with my editor and mentor, it became a lot clearer and my focus became a lot clearer. So just really figuring out what I wanted to speak about and how to represent my family, that was the most difficult part.
What about you, Zaina? What's something that you're really proud of or something that was challenging to produce your piece?
I'm really proud of how my story came out. I had a very distinct idea of what I wanted in the beginning, but obviously turning that into a full story was really hard. But with a lot of support and everything, I was like, yeah, this actually turned out very well. I'm really proud of it.
How about you, Najuma? What's something you're proud of, or what's something that you struggled with creating this piece?
I'm really proud that, like, I can kind of be a representation for other people like me, and I'm happy to, like, put some of like my community's struggles out there so other people can understand us.
How about you, Rama?
Challenge was having to like add my sister into my poem, and like while also representing other Muslims, like Hijabi Muslims. And so like just putting them together, I guess. But I'm really proud of what I did because I want to show the world that, wearing a hijab, we're just practicing our religion. We're not trying to harm anyone, and I found this new side of me. I like doing radio, and I like, just showing more awareness. Yeah.
And lastly, Eva, what's something that you are proud of with this piece, or what's something that you kind of struggled with?
I'm just really proud that I was able to tell this story because I think it took me a long time to sort of admit it, and I would always like say it with embarrassment that like this is what happened to me. I hated telling people. I hated letting my family members know. And I don't know, I just think that one day I was like, this is a story that I need to tell because I know that other people have gone through it. And if it helps at least one person, then like that's like my mission is complete. And so like, as much as I do this to have closure, I do it for other people as well.
Thank you guys so much for your answers. Let's get started with the Q&A. A question for Layla and Zaina. How has interviewing your elders or mentors affected the way you think of their roles in your life? And has it affected your relationship with them? And let's start with Layla.
So interviewing my mom, it felt like a conversation. So like I wanted it to be kind of professional in a way, but it was my mom. So I was like, oh, just asking her questions and trying to like figure out what exactly to say and like what answer to like get what answers I had hoped for to work in my story. But like I kind of I think it affected how I view her role as my mom, and like kind of just like it gives me more perspective on where she came from and like who she is, and like it helped me understand her more, and like how her actions as a mother have been impacted from the motherly figures in her life.
And then what about you, Zaina? How has interviewing your mentors or elders affected how you think of their roles in your life and your relationship with them?
Yeah, my conversation with Miss Miller was like really casual. We spent like a year and a half talking to each other through Zoom in person. So like it's super casual. I was just asking her questions and stuff. But I know a lot about her, but I didn't know that much. So I think it was really impactful just to learn of like how much she's been through, and like wow, she's still here lifting people up and like building communities. So it was really nice to just become more connected to her and like really understand why she's doing what she is doing.
Lovely. Our next question is for Najuma. What was it like interviewing a close friend, and what was it like trying to cover something so close to your own life?
It was a great experience because like me and my best friend are kind of like really alike. So like it was just like kind of a learning experience, but at the same time, it was like, okay, you're my best friend, I already know all this. So it was really fun. And I'm just happy that like, a lot of people can understand us now, and, putting this out here is just really, really good, I guess.
Yeah, and this next question is for Rama. So how did the production process change when writing a poem? And how did you rhyme everything when making it so powerful and concise at the same time?
Well, just putting everything together, it was easy, but also hard because like, writing poems is kind of a hobby of mine. I love doing that. That's like how I express myself and how I get everything out when I'm not feeling it. And so the challenge was adding my sister's cuts into it and like weaving in, making it like, rhyme and making it powerful, like I said. But yeah, I mean, I got it. It was easy, but like I had to cut a lot of things out too. But yeah, that's really it.
All right. Our next question is from Gabe. This question is for any of the producers. But several of the stories had a common theme related to breaking the silence around a specific stigma. So how did you hope to change your listeners by telling this story?
I can go ahead and answer it. I'd say gosh. I mean, I just want people to know that it's okay to talk about mental health. I think specifically in a household that has people of color, because I often see it as a common theme that it's really hard to talk about. And usually, I mean, from my experience, a lot of people didn't believe me. And it was confusing, but I'd say ultimately, I just want people to know that it's okay to talk about it and that like it's a journey for everyone as much as it is for the person who's going through a certain like difficult time in their life.
This question can be for anyone to answer, but in any of your guys' opinion, what makes for a good story? Like what aspects make a good story?
I'd say experience. When you have experience and when you've been through something that you could like share your story about, I think other people could relate. Like me talking about my hijab and like the stereotypes I've faced. I think other Muslims can also relate to that. And it's like, nice to talk about and to show the world that the thing they see on the uh media isn't actually true. We're not terrorists, we're just people practicing their religion.
Lovely. Kendra asks, for people who interviewed their family members, how did it feel connecting with your family like that? Layla, can you answer that question?
Yeah, for me, it felt, I felt very comfortable talking to my mom and just like, because we've had conversations like this before, talking about family members and discussing like her history and her past and how that relates to us. So it felt very casual and comfortable, and it felt like a very safe space in connecting with her, talking about Hajia and learning a lot of things that I didn't know beforehand. It was at times kind of emotional, but also very like eye-opening in a way. Yeah, it was a very like enlightening, or it was a very important experience. Yeah.
Definitely. One question for anybody to answer is, how did reporting your guys' stories affect you personally? And was it in ways that you expected before you reported? How about Zaina? Can you answer this one?
Yeah, so reporting this story was definitely, it was like therapy, honestly. It's really nice to just like talk to people about my story and like everything that I had encountered over quarantine and everything. I think it was really nice. And I also got to grow closer with Fresnel, so that was really nice. In ways that I didn't expect. I think being able to share this story with like all of you guys in RadioActive, it was just really nice because like hearing stories and giving stories, it was just nice for us to all connect and like really get to know each other.
How about you, Najima? How did reporting your story affect you personally?
I'm just happy to put myself out there in a way I haven't done before, because like I've done a lot of things, but I haven't done this type of journalism. And it was a great experience, and I got to, learn more about myself and my friend.
Awesome. So this next question, for anyone that had extra sound in their story, how did you come up with the process and idea of adding that sound into your story in the first place?
So active tape was suggested by my editor, Kelsey, and I hadn't thought of it beforehand, but like it was maybe just like sounds of the restaurant and what's it called, and like just like my mom speaking to customers or speaking in general at the restaurant. So adding that, it kind of added like a more homey feel, and kind of I hope that it made the listener feel like they were there in the story, kind of like in that experience, and could like become closer to like what I was talking about with the restaurant and my family.
For me, it was the same. I think I really wanted to add a sort of dinner family kind of situation sounds, because I really wanted for the listeners to feel like they were there, but also acknowledge the fact that food really does revolve around my culture. And that's why I wanted to add it both in the beginning and in the end, to just add some contrast. But I think it adds a really nice touch to the story as well.
And this question's for anybody. Do any of you guys think that you'd like to keep doing radio journalism? And does anybody have an idea for the next story, if so?
I'd say I do. I want to continue because I just feel like I found a new part of myself, and I just like raising awareness. And I definitely have so many more stories that I want to share. I don't really have one in particular right now, but I would love to continue doing radio.
I'd say me too. It was a really good experience to be a part of this program, and it made me realize that storytelling is something that I definitely want to pursue, whether it's radio or film. It's something that I think I can really put myself into and enjoy as a career in the future.
All right. So thank you, everybody. That'll be the end of our Q&A. Thanks so much for stopping by and asking so many good questions to our producers. We'll now transition over to Mary to close out.
Thank you, Adrian and Colin. Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Heisey, and I'm a program producer at RadioActive. And I'm here to lead one last hurrah before we end this celebration. So first off, I have a bunch of thank yous. Thank you to our fabulous hosts this evening, Colin Yeen, Eva Solorio, Zaina Stewart, and Adrian Guerra. And I also need to thank a lot of people who made this workshop possible. So huge shout out to our entire mentor team, made up of professional journalists and graduates of our program who worked alongside youth this summer throughout production. So let me pull up a surprise we've been working on. Mentors, we asked your mentees what they loved most about working with you. And here is what they said. So first up, we have the mentor team of Simone St. Pierre Nelson and Antonio Navarez. Lily says for Simone, thank you for always being your authentic self. Your personality is so fun. Alayna says for Antonio, the feedback and advice you gave was always so detailed and specific. It was super helpful and motivated me to keep working hard. Next up, Kyle Norris and Meghna Kakubal. Adrian says, Kyle, you are seriously the best mentor I could have asked for. Khassim says for Meghna, you noticed the little things that ultimately helped my story be more polished and professional. Shout out to Kenju Waweru and Morgan White. Colin says, Kenju, you were extremely helpful with giving me advice. You helped me grow as a writer, and I really look forward to getting to meet you in person. And Najuma says for Morgan, you were the best AP mentor I could have asked for. Props to Ardo Hersey and Iz Ortiz. Mohammed says to Ardo, whenever something went wrong and I needed help, she was always one of the people I could count on to give me good feedback. Zaina says, every time I see Iz, they make me smile. And lastly, I had the pleasure of working with Charlotte and our mentees. Jennifer, I'm so glad that you felt like you were able to open up because of me. And Charlotte, Eva says, it can be super scary sharing vulnerable things in one's personal life, but Charlotte always made sure that it was okay, and they always supported us no matter what. So I hope that filled y'all's hearts because I clearly can't stop beaming. And I have some more thank yous. Special shout out to Carlos Nieto Mosqueda, who we missed in our community this summer. Thank you so much to our editors, Diana Opong, Sonia Harris, and Ann Kane. I'll also mention that, some of our stories this summer dealt with sensitive topics in underrepresented communities. And we know that journalism has a long history of harming marginalized communities. So for those stories, we brought in story consultants to help make sure we were telling these stories in respectful and non-harmful ways. So thank you to our story consultants, Brittany Bartkowiak, Kayla Brown, Paula Pessoto, and Alon Stevens. Thanks to our office assistant, Melissa Takai, our program producer, Kelsey Tolshin-Kupfer, and our program manager, Leela Lakehart. Thank you to families and supporters watching for allowing your teen to spend their summer with us and for supporting them. Thank you to any graduates who are watching the show today. We miss you so much. And lastly, thank you for coming and listening to these stories. So that brings us to the end. I'm going to invite all RadioActive youth and staff to come back onto the stage. You can turn your video on. Oh, thank you, thank you. Look at them. Look at these smiles. And I just want to say one quick last reflection. We received over 200 applications for this program this summer for originally 12 spots until we were like, no, we've got to find a way to work with more students. There's clearly a hunger and a need out there. This was our second year doing a virtual workshop, and now we're deeper in this pandemic together. And we hear this message loud and clear that a lot of young people actually want to spend their summer making radio stories, learning about journalism, ethics, how to use a recorder, of course, getting paid, but also wanting a challenge, wanting to learn something new, meet new people, be part of a community again, have fun, connect with joy. So y'all, I hope we were able to help you do some of those things for a few weeks. And please know you are part of the RadioActive community now and always, and we're forever rooting for you. Woo! All right, well, let's make it official. You have finished the RadioActive online radio storytelling workshop. You can go on to do wonders with the skills you have learned. Congratulations. So let's do a RadioActive tradition, clap to close. Go ahead and unmute. Let's hear the chaos of all of us unmuting at the same time. I will count us down, all right? 3, 2, 1. Oh, beautiful, beautiful, y'all. Thanks for watching. Thank you. Bye.